Imagine this, right? You just you just filmed this phenomenal 15-second video on your phone.
Oh, the best feeling.
Yeah. Maybe you finally nailed the explanation of that really complex project you're working on, or you caught this genuinely hilarious moment with your dog.
Right.
The lighting was great, your delivery was flawless, and you're riding high on that creative dopamine.
You feel like a genius for about 5 minutes.
Exactly. So you open the editing app on your phone, you drop the clip into the timeline, and you look at the multiple tracks. You see the tiny razor blade tool, the audio
But the
waveforms,
dread sets in.
total dread.
Yeah.
You feel this instant suffocating wave of overwhelm, and you know what you do.
You close the app.
You just close the app. You put
Yeah.
the phone back in your pocket. That video, that great moment, it never sees the light of day.
Yeah, it's tragic. But it's so common.
It really is. For millions of people trying to participate in the modern digital world, that exact scenario plays out every single day. That's the reality of the creator economy. But today, we're exploring a source that claims this reality is, well, entirely obsolete.
Yeah, it's the universal friction point. And the source we're unpacking today, it's this highly detailed tech and culture blog post written in early 2026 by Paramendra Kumar Bhagat. And he addresses this exact pain point head on.
Which is fascinating because he playfully opens by noting that we are entering the age of abundance.
Right, a concept he jokes was prophesied thousands of years ago in ancient scriptures, but is, only now being realized in silicon.
And the focal point of this abundance, it isn't a new social media network. It's not some bulky new virtual reality headset. Fagat's core thesis is that the ultimate killer app of 2026 is the AI video editor.
A massive claim.
It's huge. So our mission for this deep dive is to put that massive claim under a microscope. Has the tech industry genuinely solved the content creator's biggest, most agonizing nightmare? Or are we just being sold another incredibly shiny but incomplete dream?
To really scrutinize that, we have to establish the baseline of where hardware and human behavior sit in 2026. Because the hardware bottleneck, the thing that held people back for decades, it's completely gone.
Yeah, the cameras are incredible now.
They're Hollywood capable. If you own a smartphone, you have a cinema camera in your pocket. It automatically color grades. It stabilizes handshake.
Which is a lifesaver for me, honestly.
Right. And it pulls focus flawlessly. You point, you tap. And the raw capture is a miracle of modern engineering. Literally every single person is a potential creator.
Which makes that drop-off rate we talked about even more tragic.
It really does.
Because the hardware gives you a Ferrari, but the software forces you to, refine your own gasoline before you can even drive it. The bottleneck isn't shooting the video anymore.
No, not at all.
The bottleneck is the grueling, just soul-crushing post-production process. Turning that raw, beautiful footage into something paced correctly, engaging, and platform-ready. That's where the creative impulse just dies.
And that brings us to what the source incredibly accurately describes as digital dust.
Ooh, digital dust. I love that term.
It's perfect, right? It's the gigabytes of half-finished projects just sitting on hard drives and cloud servers. If we want to understand the AI solutions, we first have to dissect the exact mechanics of the pain they're trying to solve.
Okay, let's unpack this because the math of misery provided in the source is staggering. Let's look at that 15-second reel we just talked about.
Yeah, the dog video.
Right. According to the text, for an average person, someone without a formal degree in film editing, turning raw footage into a polished 15-second social media clip takes between 45 to 120 minutes of manual labor.
Just think about the ratio there.
It's insane.
You are investing up to 2 hours of intense, focused labor for an asset that a viewer will consume, process, and swipe past in exactly 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
From an economic and psychological standpoint, the return on investment for the average user is deeply hostile.
Hostile is the right word. It's completely disjointed. I was trying to find a way to conceptualize this gap because my old analogy of building a kitchen didn't quite capture the mental exhaustion.
Oh, what did you come up with?
Here's what it actually feels like. Shooting the video is like writing a spontaneous, heartfelt poem. The creativity just flows, it feels natural. But manual video editing is like being forced to immediately take that poem, walk into a 19th century printing press, and manually place every single lead letter backwards into a metal block before anyone is allowed to read it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That is a much more precise analogy because it highlights the cognitive dissonance. You're describing a severe context switch.
Exactly. You're going from pure expression to typesetting.
Let's look at the specific chores of creation, the source details, because in that 45 to 120 minutes, what is the user actually doing? They aren't just, editing in a vague sense.
No, they're doing manual labor.
They're hunting for dead air. They're using a tiny digital razor tool to slice out microseconds of silence. They're manually dragging audio tracks left and right by a millimeter to sync a visual transition with a drum beat.
And the captions.
Right. They are typing out captions word by word because platforms are largely watched on mute now.
Yeah, you have to have captions or people scroll right past.
And then they're scouring stock websites trying to find a 3-second clip of a coffee cup to cover up a moment where the camera lost focus. They are hunting for ums and uhs and painstakingly deleting them without making the video look jumpy.
And doing all of that on a mobile screen or even a desktop monitor, it requires you to basically split your brain in half.
Literally, you are constantly toggling between two distinct modes of neural processing. When you're watching the video to see if it feels right, you're in a holistic, creative storytelling mode. You're assessing pacing and emotion.
You're asking, does this feel good?
Exactly. But the absolute second you need to make an adjustment, you drop into a highly mechanical, spatial problem-solving mode. You're zooming in 400% on a visual timeline, aligning pixels, monitoring audio decibel meters, managing file pathways.
It's exhausting just talking about it.
That rapid, constant toggling between the creative mind and the mechanical mind is what causes the profound exhaustion you described earlier. It drains your executive function.
And the source points out that this is just the baseline pain for 15 seconds. Multiply that by the actual demands of the modern internet.
Oh, yeah, it scales terribly.
Let's say you're a podcaster or you run a small business and you just recorded an hour-long webinar. You don't just need one 15-second clip.
You need 10.
Right. You have to scrub through that entire hour, hunt down the 3 most engaging 30-second highlights. Then you have to take that wide horizontal video and manually reframe it, literally tracking the speaker's face frame by frame so it fits on a vertical phone screen.
And then translate it.
Yes. Then you have to translate the subtitles into 2 different languages to reach a broader audience.
Right.
You are multiplying that initial cognitive pain by a factor of 10 or 20.
This leads us directly to the macro consequence of this friction. If we step back and look at the digital ecosystem as a whole, this isn't just an inconvenience for hobbyists. It is a massive structural barrier.
Yeah.
The text is very explicit about this. This friction leads directly to stalled growth for anyone who cannot afford a dedicated production team. It creates a silent majority of netizens.
It's a silencing effect. That's what is so frustrating. You have students, local bakery owners, amateur historians, hobbyist mechanics, people with genuinely fascinating insights and vibrant personalities.
People we want to hear from.
Exactly. But they simply cannot justify the time tax required to participate. They are priced out of the conversation not by money, but by time and cognitive load.
Exactly. The modern digital economy runs on video. The algorithms of TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn, they do not reward a beautifully crafted video posted once a month.
No, they want volume.
They demand a relentless, continuous stream of high-quality output. If the technical barrier to entry requires an hour of mechanical typesetting for every 15 seconds of output, the platform inherently locks out the everyday voice.
Which serves as the perfect springboard into the grand claim of Vigat's text. Because if the problem is that massive, the solution has to be equally revolutionary.
It can't just be an incremental update.
Right. The source pivots here to claim that the AI video editors emerging in 2026 aren't just a suite of cool new features. They represent a fundamental ecosystem shift. They are the killer app.
The term killer app is thrown around so casually in tech, but the author anchors it to very specific historical precedents to justify the weight of the term. A true killer app doesn't just optimize an existing workflow, it unlocks an entirely new behavioral paradigm. The source uses the spreadsheet as the foundational example.
Right, like VisiCalc in the late 70s and later Excel.
Precisely. Before the spreadsheet, complex financial modeling required an entire department of accountants working with physical ledger paper and calculators.
Literal paper pencils.
If you wanted to change one variable, say the cost of raw materials, it took days of recalculating every dependent cell by hand. VisiCalc digitized that. It didn't just make accounting faster, it fundamentally changed how businesses thought.
Because you could play with the numbers in real time.
Yes, it allowed managers to run what-if scenarios instantly. That single software application justified the cost of putting a personal computer on millions of desks. The PC revolution was largely driven by the desire to run spreadsheets.
It's wild to think about now. And the second precedent the text mentions is social media itself, which transformed the mobile phone. It went from a device used to call your mom to a pocket-sized global broadcasting tower.
So the author's argument is that AI video editors in 2026 are performing that exact same catalytic function for video content. They are fundamentally altering the economics of participation. And the text provides concrete, real-world data points to illustrate this return on investment.
I love these examples because they take it out of the theoretical. The text cites a small boutique in Mumbai. Previously, using manual workflows, they were grinding out 8 reels per month. It was all they had time for.
Which is a lot of work manually.
Huge amount of work. But by adopting AI editing templates, they scaled to 25 reels a month. That is triple the marketing output, triple the potential customer touchpoints, without expanding their payroll by a single rupee.
That's massive for a small business.
And then there is the fitness creator in Bangalore. They gained 10,000 followers in a 60-day window, specifically by chaining together 2 different AI tools to rapidly increase their publishing cadence. The time investment dropped from that brutal 1 hour per clip down to just 5 or 10 minutes.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are witnessing is the democratization of scale. Think about what scaling a video strategy required in 2020. You either needed to invest hundreds of hours mastering professional nonlinear editing software like Premiere Pro or Final Cut, or you needed a massive marketing budget to retain a creative agency.
You had to buy your way in, either with cash or your sanity.
Precisely. But when you compress an hour of labor into 5 minutes through automation, those technical and financial gates evaporate.
It totally levels the playing field.
It does something even more profound than leveling the playing field. It completely shifts where the human creator derives their value. If the mechanical execution, the cutting, the syncing, the reframing is handled by the machine, the creator is forced to stop obsessing over pixel pushing. Your cognitive load is freed up and redirected entirely back to pure idea generation.
So the economy of video shifts from who has the best editing skills to who has the most compelling idea.
Exactly. Ideas become the primary currency again.
Okay, I am thoroughly sold on the philosophy, but I want to know exactly how this is happening under the hood. The source spends a significant amount of time categorizing and dissecting the heavyweights of 2026. Let's dig into the actual tools, starting with what the text calls the kings of long-form and spoken word content. First up, Vizard.ai.
Vizard.ai represents the pinnacle of the repurposing engine category.
The claims here are wild. The text states it is 10 times faster for repurposing content than manual editing. And it's not just randomly slicing video at 5-minute intervals. The AI actively auto-detects the highlights of a video.
Right, it's actually looking for the best parts.
It literally scores these extracted clips for their viral potential. It generates captions in over 100 languages, auto-reframes the shot to keep the speaker centered on a vertical screen, and then lets you schedule the post directly to your social feeds.
But we need to unpack how it actually accomplishes that viral scoring and highlight detection, because it's not magic, it's highly advanced pattern recognition. Vizard isn't like watching the video and laughing at the jokes.
Right, it doesn't have a sense of humor.
Exactly. It is analyzing multiple data streams simultaneously. First, it transcribes the audio and uses natural language processing, or NLP, to look for semantic density. It searches for setups and punchlines or sudden shifts in topic.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, it analyzes the audio waveform for amplitude and pitch variations. A sudden spike in volume or change in vocal cadence usually indicates excitement or a key point.
Like when someone raises their voice to make a point.
Yes. Third, it tracks facial expressions and micro movements. It aggregates all these signals, compares them against a database of historically high-performing social media clips, and assigns a probability score.
So it's essentially reverse engineering the psychology of what makes a human stop scrolling based on massive amounts of historical data.
Exactly. And the source notes that its ideal use case is incredibly specific. If you're a creator who generates massive amounts of unstructured long-form content, say you host an hour-long interview podcast, or you record weekly internal corporate town halls, your biggest nightmare is the extraction process.
Oh yeah, scrubbing through an hour of footage to find a 30-second clip is torture.
Vizard is the undisputed 2026 winner for that workflow. You feed the beast a massive file, and it acts as an automated producer, handing you back a curated month's worth of short-form assets.
But then the text pivots to a tool that completely breaks my understanding of how video editing is supposed to work. Descript. The source calls this the transcript-first revolution.
Descript is arguably the most philosophically disruptive tool on the list because it requires you to abandon decades of established UI design.
It really does.
Yeah.
Since the invention of digital video editing, you've looked at a timeline, a horizontal track moving left to right. In Descript, you are basically looking at a Microsoft Word document.
It's just text.
The AI transcribes your video, and to edit the footage, you simply highlight a sentence in the text and hit the delete key. The video file instantly and seamlessly cuts itself to match the text deletion.
Which feels like witchcraft the first time you do it.
It does. Plus, it has this feature called Overdub, which is a voice cloning model. If you are reviewing your video and realize you said 2024 instead of 2026, you don't reshoot. You just type the word 2026 into the transcript, and the AI synthesizes your exact voice with your exact room acoustics and inserts the word into the audio track.
And the filler word removal is a single click.
Oh, right. You press a button, and every, it's just gone.
Functionally, it reduces the complexity of video editing to the simplicity of writing a Google Doc. The technical mechanism behind this involves incredibly precise timestamping. The AI's acoustic model doesn't just recognize a word, it maps the exact millisecond a specific phone begins and ends in the audio file and mathematically binds that timestamp to the text character on your screen.
I get the technical brilliance of it, but I have to push back hard on this paradigm. Doesn't editing a video, as if it were a text document, completely strip away the visual artistry of the medium?
It's a very valid concern.
Because video is inherently spatial and temporal. It exists in time and space. You have visual pacing, you have the comedic timing of a silent glance, or the dramatic tension of a long breath. If I am just staring at a wall of text, I am completely blind to the visual rhythm. I can't see the micro-expressions. I can't time a cut to the exact frame a subject blinks. Doesn't treating video like an essay fundamentally ruin the final product?
That is an exceptionally sharp critique, and it cuts to the core of the tool's limitations. The source material implicitly validates your concern. Descript is praised specifically for spoken word audio, talking head videos, and podcasts. It is a tool for information delivery.
Where the words matter more than the visuals.
Right. But you are entirely correct that it forces a cognitive misalignment. You are attempting to manipulate a spatial visual medium using a linear text-based interface. If your goal is to cut a highly kinetic cinematic montage or perfectly time a visual gag where the silence is the joke, a transcript-first editor will actively fight you.
It's like trying to paint a picture by typing out the hex codes for the colors. It works technically, but you lose the feel of the brush.
That's a great way to put it. It is a revolutionary leap forward for the speed of editing informational content, but it sacrifices granular visual precision to achieve that speed. It assumes the words are the most important part of the video, which isn't always true.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It's a specialized tool. So Vizard and Descript are both built around fixing, optimizing, and repurposing footage that a human has already physically shot. But the source then crosses the major threshold. We move into the territory of things that don't exist yet. The tools that generate video from thin air, and the tools built natively for hyper-fast mobile environments, the generative wizards.
This is where we see the actual foundational AI models, the heavy computational architectures, integrated directly into the consumer interface.
Right, let's look at NVIDIA AI. The workflow described in the text is mind-bending. You don't upload a video, you just type a text prompt.
It's just text.
The example given is something like create a 12-second skincare routine video, make the aesthetic clean and bright, and use an upbeat, trendy background track. You hit enter. The software writes a script with psychological hooks. It integrates advanced diffusion models like Sora 2 and Veo 3.1 to literally hallucinate the video footage into existence. It layers on B-roll from massive stock libraries, adds dynamic text captions, and mixes the audio from a single sentence.
We need to explain how monumental that integration is. When the text mentions Sora 2 and Veo 3.1, it's referring to text-to-video diffusion models. These algorithms don't search the internet for a video of a skincare routine.
They aren't just pulling stock clips.
Exactly. They start with a frame of pure digital noise, like television static. Then, based on the mathematical relationship between your text prompt and billions of images they've been trained on, they systematically remove the noise over dozens of steps until a photorealistic image emerges. The true breakthrough of models like Sora 2 is temporal consistency, ensuring that the generated subject doesn't morph into a completely different person when the camera pans to the left.
So NVIDIA is essentially a prompt-to-video assembly line.
Yes. It is the ultimate tool for a marketer, a real estate agent, or a small business owner who understands the message they want to convey, but has absolutely zero desire to be on camera or set up lighting. It synthesizes a highly polished asset purely from text intent.
But then we have Runway, specifically their Gen 4.5 model, which the text categorizes slightly differently. It calls Runway a creative studio rather than a traditional editor.
Runway caters to a radically different psychological impulse. InVideo is designed to assemble a pragmatic marketing asset quickly. Runway is built for pure, unadulterated creative experimentation and visual effects.
The feature list reads like sci-fi. Text video generation is just the start. It has advanced in-painting. The text explains that if you have a video of a person walking down a modern street, you can just draw a rough circle around a modern car in the background, type horse-drawn carriage, and the AI seamlessly replaces the moving object while calculating the correct lighting, shadows, and background occlusions for the new object.
It's doing Hollywood VFX in seconds.
And then there's the motion brush. You take a completely still photograph, say a picture of a waterfall you took on vacation. You paint over the water with your mouse, and you tell the AI to make only that specific painted area move downward. It hallucinates motion into a still image.
How it achieves this is fascinating. The motion brush relies on optical flow estimation. The AI calculates the vectors of how pixels should logically move over time based on the physical properties of what it recognizes, in this case, water gravity. But as a source astutely points out, Runway Gen 4.5 is rarely the final destination for a video.
Right, you wouldn't edit a whole podcast in Runway.
No, you use it to generate the impossible shot, the visual effect you could never afford to film, and then you export that clip and bring it into a different editor to assemble the actual narrative.
Which perfectly transitions us into the tools where that final assembly actually happens. The source looks at CapCut, VED.io, and the big professional suites. Let's start with CapCut, because according to the 2026 data in the text, it absolutely dominates the free tier market. It is everywhere.
CapCut's market dominance is a masterclass in platform-native intelligence. It doesn't want to be Adobe Premiere. It is unapologetically mobile-first, and its entire architecture is designed to mimic the aesthetic velocity of TikTok, Instagram Reels, and YouTube Shorts.
It's all about reducing the friction of participating in a trend. The source highlights its massive library of trending templates. If a specific meme format is going viral on TikTok on Tuesday morning, by Tuesday afternoon there is a CapCut template for it. You just drop in 3 photos and it does the rest.
It's reactive at the speed of culture.
It really is. It has auto beat syncing that actually analyzes the transients in the music track and snaps your video cuts perfectly to the bass drops. And the background removal, which used to require hanging a physical green screen in your house and spending hours tweaking chroma key settings, the text literally describes it as feeling magical. You tap a button, and the AI precisely isolates the subject's hair and clothing, allowing you to drop them into a new environment instantly.
It democratizes the visual vocabulary of Gen Z and Gen Alpha, and rounding out this ecosystem map, the source highlights VED.io. This occupies a unique niche, browser-only speed.
Right, so you don't have to download some massive program.
Exactly. It requires zero software installation. It leverages cloud computing to handle the heavy processing, offering features like instant auto subtitles and AI avatars right in Chrome or Safari. It's built for rapid, collaborative, enterprise-level edits where sharing a project file is too slow.
But what about the people making actual movies or high-end commercials?
Yeah.
The text doesn't ignore the old guard. It mentions Adobe Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve, noting that they haven't been replaced. They've assimilated the AI.
The professional suites have integrated AI as a profoundly powerful surgical assistant, rather than trying to replace the foundational timeline interface. The source specifically calls out features like Generative Extend.
This blew my mind.
Yeah.
You have a clip, but it's 2 seconds too short to reach the end of the music track. Instead of slowing the clip down and making it look choppy, you just drag the edge of the clip to make it longer, and the AI literally invents 2 seconds of new video footage that seamlessly continues the motion of the scene.
It uses the same diffusion technology we discussed with Runway, but applied linearly to predict future frames based on past forms. And features like auto reframe use computer vision to track the primary subject's center of mass, automatically panning and scanning a 16.9 widescreen shot to perfectly fit a 9.16 vertical phone screen without losing the action.
Okay, so I want to address you, the listener, right now. Try to mentally place yourself on this map we've just spent the last 20 minutes laying out. Who are you in this ecosystem?
That's a good question.
Are you a solo creator with absolutely zero budget, just trying to participate in the daily conversation? You were probably living in CapCut. Are you a thought leader or podcaster drowning in hours of interview footage? You desperately need Vizard or Descript? Are you a small business marketer trying to create a promotional campaign without ever touching a camera? You are typing prompts into NVIDIA AI. The 2026 ecosystem is hyper-specialized for exactly who you are.
It is a profoundly impressive array of technological capability. When you view it comprehensively, it genuinely feels like we have reached the promised land of frictionless content creation.
Right. I mean, reading through that breakdown, you are completely sold on the magic. It sounds like the pain point we started this deep dive with has been entirely eradicated. But
Yeah.
here's where it gets really interesting. Just as the reader is fully buying into this techno-utopia, the deep dive pivots sharply. The source delivers a massive, sobering reality check. The revolution, it turns out, is incomplete.
The author introduces a concept that is critical for understanding the current limitations. He calls it the word processing dream.
Yes, the broken promise. The collective dream of the tech industry was that by 2026, editing video would be as mathematically frictionless as writing an essay in a word processor.
Like typing in Word.
Exactly. You delete a sentence, the footage vanishes. You want to rephrase a line for punchier delivery, the AI instantly recalculates the pacing and emotional resonance of the cut. No timelines, no keyframes, no export rendering bars. Just pure human intent, translated instantaneously into a polished video asset.
But it's not quite there yet.
No. The source bluntly states that despite billions of dollars in AI research and all the marketing hype, the top contenders still force the exact same frustrations on us that we had 5 years ago.
To understand why, we have to look ruthlessly at the specific user complaints detailed in the text. This is where the messy friction of human reality collides with the polished marketing claims of Silicon Valley. We need to go tool by tool and examine exactly where the dream breaks down in practice.
Let's start with Visor.ai, our champion of repurposing long-form content. The source notes that the user forums are full of complaints. The auto detection often requires constant manual tweaking for things like dynamic zooms.
Right, because it doesn't always frame it the way you want.
The AI's automated edit rarely perfectly matches the creator's actual nuanced vision of what the highlight should have been. It cuts off the background music abruptly at the end of a clip instead of applying a natural audio fade-out. The cloud processing can be incredibly slow during peak hours.
And let's talk about the paywalls.
Oh, exactly. The free tiers are severely crippled by massive watermarks, effectively forcing solo creators into expensive monthly paid plans just to make the tool usable.
The takeaway for Vizard is that it functions brilliantly as a heavy lifting assistant. It will chop the wood for you, but it is definitively not a set it and forget it tool. You are still spending significant time manually sweeping up the sawdust and refining the edges.
Then we move to Descript, our Google Docs for video. I challenged the philosophy of this earlier, but the reality checks provided in the source are even more brutal. The timeline interface that exists underneath the text document is universally described by users as clunky as hell. It feels like an afterthought bolted onto a text editor.
Which perfectly validates your earlier critique about spatial reasoning and visual artistry. The moment you attempt to do anything visually complex in Descript layering multiple B-roll tracks, creating custom transitions, or animating text, the tool actively fights your intentions. The visual effects engine is laughably basic compared to traditional software.
And it gets worse on a technical stability level. The source points out that large 4K video projects cause the application to slow to a crawl. It crashes frequently. There are terrifying synchronization bugs where the text and the video decouple, and users literally lose hours of work.
That is a nightmare.
But the most damning critique goes back to the core concept. Because it edits based entirely on a text transcript, it becomes completely blind to audio context. The AI might perfectly execute a command to remove the filler word, but in doing so, it aggressively chops out a 3-second pause that was vital for the emotional gravity of the sentence. It ruins the natural human cadence of speech.
It forces the user to constantly play defense. You are continuously working around the software's literal, often tone-deaf interpretation of your speech patterns.
Okay, what about CapCut? Fast, free, ubiquitous, magical background removal. What's the massive catch there?
CapCut's greatest strength is also its fatal flaw. It is fundamentally shallow. It is entirely dependent on rigid templates. It is an exceptional tool for generating volume and participating in fleeting viral trends. But the moment a creator attempts to execute complex, original storytelling, nuanced cinematic pacing, or a highly specific, bespoke brand visual identity, they hit a concrete wall.
Because the AI just doesn't understand the brand.
Exactly. The AI within CapCut isn't intelligent enough to understand creative intent beyond the prompt, make this look like the current trend. It lacks narrative depth.
That makes sense. It's fast food. Delicious, quick, but you can't build a Michelin star meal out of it. Okay, let's look at the generative wizards in Video and Runway. The prompt-to-video magic where we just type and get Sora 2 footage. Where does that fall apart?
The recurring fatal complaint across generative models is the issue of literal misinterpretation and hallucination. You type a prompt, and the AI lacks the lived human experience to understand the subtext or cultural nuance of what you are asking for. It takes the text so literally that the visual output is often uncanny or entirely unusable without extreme manual correction.
Right, you ask for a warm family dinner, and it generates humans with 6 fingers eating plates of plastic-looking FOD.
Precisely. And the workflow reality is that you end up iterating multiple times, slightly tweaking your text prompt, hoping the AI guesses what you mean. Every time you guess, you are spending expensive computational credits. The credit systems introduce a financial anxiety that completely interrupts the creative flow.
It's like putting quarters into an arcade machine every time you want to try a new edit.
Furthermore, the synthesized stock footage often feels generic and soulless, and even after you get a semi-usable generative clip, the export bugs are common, and you still have to import that clip into a traditional timeline editor like Premiere to fix the timing anyway.
And finally, VA.io. Browser simple, no installation. But the source says it severely lacks professional depth. The AI-generated voiceovers and digital avatars still fall into the uncanny valley, making them unsuitable for serious corporate or professional branding. And because it relies entirely on browser memory and cloud transfer, large, complex projects simply bog the system down to an unusable state.
If we synthesize all of these complaints, a clear pattern emerges across the entire 2026 landscape. Every single one of these heavily funded tools hits a definitive ceiling. They are miraculous at solving the first 60 to 70% of the grunt work. They do the transcribing, the initial slicing, the basic syncing.
They get you most of the way there.
But that final 30 to 40%, the polish, the timing, the emotional resonance, inevitably forces the user right back into the manual pixel-pushing labor they downloaded the app to escape.
I find myself obsessing over the why. We need to diagnose the root cause of this ceiling. Why do these incredibly advanced AI models, powered by billions of parameters, utilizing Sora 2 and Veo 3.1, still feel so deeply frustrating and obtuse when you actually try to use them to tell a story?
What's fascinating here is that the core flaw is not a lack of processing power. It is a fundamental failure to understand narrative intent. AI models, even in their advanced 2026 state, are ultimately highly sophisticated pattern-matching engines. They process data mathematically. They do not possess a human, experiential understanding of context, subtext, or emotion.
Give me a concrete example of that gap between pattern matching and human context.
Let's take the concept of silence in a video, which we touched on briefly with Descript. To an AI algorithm that has been trained to optimize for social media retention metrics, silence is categorized as dead air. It is an anomalous drop in the audio waveform that the algorithm believes will cause the viewer to lose stimulation and swipe away. Therefore, the AI aggressively auto-cuts the silence.
Which makes sense if you're a robot trying to keep a viewer hooked.
But to a human filmmaker or a human audience, a 3-second silence following a profound, heartbreaking revelation is the entire point of the scene. It is the emotional climax. It is artistic tension. The AI cannot mathematically distinguish between boring dead air and vital artistic silence because it doesn't understand the meaning of the words being spoken.
That is such a perfect encapsulation of the problem. It edits the data, not the emotion. It's optimizing for a spreadsheet, not a human heart. And the source argues that this lack of understanding leads directly to what it calls interface friction. Because the AI cannot read your mind or feel your intent, the software interface can never truly become invisible.
Exactly. The dream of the invisible editor relies on perfect translation of intent. But because the AI lacks context, you are never just purely describing your creative vision to the machine. You are constantly translating your human emotion into machine parameters.
But you're fighting the tool.
You are fighting a timeline, you are managing a credit limit ledger, you are wrestling with clunky slider controls, or you are acting as a prompt engineer, trying to guess the exact magical combination of adjectives that will force the diffusion model to understand what you actually want.
You're speaking to a tourist with a translation dictionary, not a native speaker of human emotion.
Yes, and because of that massive translation gap, Human taste, critical thinking, and manual overrides remain absolutely mandatory for any piece of content that requires precision, authentic emotion, or a highly specific brand identity.
So if that is the frustrating half-finished reality of 2026, what does the actual dream look like? The source doesn't just complain, it paints this incredibly vivid, aspirational picture of what a true killer app, a fully conversational, context-aware editor would act like in the future. Imagine not opening an app with a timeline at all. Imagine just uploading a massive raw video file to a server and speaking out loud to the AI, exactly like you would to a seasoned human documentary editor sitting next to you on a couch.
The hypothetical prompt provided in the text serves as a perfect roadmap for where this technology must eventually go to fulfill its promise.
Right, the prompt goes something like this. You just say to the machine, hey, turn this 45-minute interview into 5 TikTok-ready clips. I want you to find and keep the 3 highest emotional peaks. Remove the ums and the stutters, but absolutely preserve the natural pauses around the heavy statements for drama. Add some subtle background music that builds tension right before the punchlines. Reframe the whole thing for vertical video with some dynamic, slow zooms on the speaker's face to emphasize the serious points. Translate the captions to Spanish and rewrite the opening hooks so they are punchier for a younger demographic.
And the crucial element of this dream scenario is that the AI executes that complex, multi-layered command flawlessly, understanding the subtle difference between a stutter and a dramatic pause without ever once forcing you to scrub a timeline, adjust an audio keyframe, or look at a waveform.
If it gets it wrong,
If the output isn't exactly right, you don't grab a razor tool. You just reply conversationally. Make the second clip a little bit more lighthearted, or extend the silence on the third clip for more emphasis.
it's pure creative control, operating at the exact speed of thought. No hunting for generic stock footage. No anxiety about credits running out mid-sentence. Just human intent instantly materialized into a final result.
And we must acknowledge that we are closer to that reality than humanity has ever been. Descript's text-to-video paradigm, despite its flaws, and Runway's generative physics engines are massive foundational technological leaps toward that conversational future. But the gap between a highly impressive beta tool and an invisible, contextually aware, fully conversational editing partner is still an enormous chasm.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, navigating this landscape today? The bottom line, according to our deep dive into Bhagat's material, is really a tale of 2 realities living side by side. On one hand, the hype is absolutely real. Mechanical tasks that used to require hours of agonizing manual labor have been genuinely reduced to a matter of minutes. The technical gates have been blown wide open. Millions of people who were previously silenced by I love that framing. It removes the excuses. So here is our concrete call to action for you listening right now. Take the author's advice to heart. Sometime this weekend, go into your camera roll and find a video you shot but never posted because the thought of editing it felt too overwhelming. Download one of these free tiers, try CapCut on your phone or throw it into VisArt or play with InVideo, feed that forgotten clip into the machine and let the AI handle the grunt work. Experience the reality of this 2026 tech for yourself and see firsthand exactly how much friction it actually removes from your creative life.
Engaging directly with the tools is the only way to truly internalize both the profound magic and the frustrating current limitations we've dissected today.
But before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on. We started this deep dive by talking about the age of abundance and the soul-crushing nightmare of the manual editing timeline. We are clearly rapidly accelerating toward a day where that word processing dream becomes a flawless reality. A day where the barrier to creating a perfectly polished, cinematic, flawlessly paced, beautifully color-graded video drops to absolute zero. It will require nothing more than a spoken thought.
A truly frictionless, zero marginal cost creative environment.
Exactly. But if we reach a point in society where literally everyone can produce flawless, perfectly polished, cinematic video effortlessly, what happens to the innate value of that perfection? When technical polish is universally abundant and entirely free, will human imperfection, this raw, unedited, slightly messy, stuttering reality of a single uncut take, suddenly become the new premium commodity? Will rawness be the only thing we actually crave because it's the only thing that proves a human being was actually there? Think about it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.